All right, welcome to the SoMeDocs Physician Discussion Panel following the final lecture of the Even Physicians Need Life Lessons series. We're here to review what Maureen Hunter, organizational psychologist, shared last night on disrupting the expert model, using experience as a way to connect with others. I'm Dr. Amelia Bueche, and I'm joined by 5 fabulous physicians this evening, and we're going to review some of the concepts, share our perspectives, and also tell you about the work that we are doing around using experience as a means of connection. Thanks everyone for joining me here tonight. Dr. Payal, Ghayal, tell me where you are, what you're doing, and what you know about using experience as a method of connection.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me. I am in Los Angeles, and I am a pediatrician and an integrative physician by training and a life coach. And I'm very drawn to connection. I think it's one of my core values. And so medicine was one way that I kind of went in that direction. And I was like, how can I be with people and help people? And so the whole experience of work for me is really connected to humans and our interactions. And that also kind of goes into like my other world, which I am like mostly doing now, which is coaching. And it's, really connecting with human beings and understanding their point of view and trying to help them from where they are and where they want to go.
Excellent, thank you. And I think we have a neighbor here, so we'll go next to Dr. Pam Dyne. Where are you, what are you doing? And tell us about your experience as a method of connection.
Well, I'm pretty connected to my dogs, so you might be able to hear them barking in the background. I apologize. So my name's Pam. I'm an emergency medicine physician in Los Angeles, in academic medicine as well, and also a life coach. Emergency medicine, you might not think, if you don't really know, you might not think that it's a specialty that's specifically all about connection and observational skills, but it really is. It's about the ability to get a history from a patient is all about your ability to connect with them and really bring that out. That's what I love about my specialty and what I love, teaching about as well. Why does the attending always get a better history than the resident? Well, it's because we have more experience in drawing those things, drawing the information out of the patient and understanding what they actually mean when they say something, and how our brains work in generating a thorough history, and then making the patient feel really good about the information that you're sharing with them as well. The good news is all your tests are normal, so the dreaded dangerous thing isn't happening. How you play that, the patient, how they connect with you as a clinician has everything to do with their how they receive that information. It could be just like, well, they didn't do anything for me, they really took a lot of time to connect with me and make sure I understood and my concerns were evaluated. So that's my take on connection with people as an emergency physician. And then life for me is really about developing people so that they can be the best that they can be, both as a resident and as an attending. Once again, apologies.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that's so important to notice, right, that matching of energy, which we heard a lot in the talk yesterday, and how that makes such a difference. And I love that, relating it to getting of the history and perhaps encouraging, right, to our younger physicians or physicians in training who are watching, and how that can actually be such an advantage. Dr. Colin, tell us where you are, what you're doing, and what you're thinking about experience for connection.
Well, thank you, Amelia, for inviting me on. Hello to all my other panelists. I'm also here as a neighbor in Los Angeles. Might as well just broadcast from LA. But for those of you who don't know, I'm a family physician. I'm also board certified in lifestyle medicine as well. And your question about experience, in terms of connection, I would say the two biggest things that I draw on was, so from my experience as a traveling physician, I used to work as a locum tenens. And I've had the privilege of working in 4 different states, worked on Indian health reservations, the VA, community health centers, county medicine. And I personally, in my personal life before COVID, I've been blessed and humbled to travel around the world. So I've been able to touch every continent. And I use those experiences to be able to impart, in a way, we don't focus so much about the art of medicine so much as like the science, right? And I really think that as a creative, trying to work that right side of our brain here as a physician, is to kind of impart our own finesse and style and our interpretation of medicine, into the world. And so the type of medicine that I practice is really to, at the very, very, very least, is to kind of uplift someone and to really inspire them. And I think one of the best ways is to kind of lead by example, just, living your own life experience.
Excellent. I love that. And we were just talking about all the travel dreams. So you're sparking that interest for me here, but absolutely. And holding at the forefront of how can we connect with and uplift others? What a great method and mantra to have in your practice of medicine. All right, Dr. Nora Vasquez, I think you're with me, not in California for the moment, right? Tell us where you are, what you're doing, and how it's going for you.
Yeah, it's going great. I'm in sunny Texas, so it's been the 70s a few days here, so that's been nice. But thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm very excited to be here. So I'm an internist and also physician life coach, and I have my business, Renew Your Mind MD. And so what I currently do is I help medical students, residents, and attending physicians overcome burnout and the overwhelm of practicing modern day medicine. And so it's been such a passion of mine to heal the healers, and it's been a dream come true to be able to do that type of work. And what I love about connection is creating community and connection, either with my one-on-one individual clients or on a larger group as I lead groups, at different institutions or hospitals through a program where I can help them with the overwhelm of practicing medicine or in their career. So it's been a blessing.
Yeah, such great work. And Dr. Ursula Lang, tell us where you are, what you're doing, and how experience is serving you in your practice.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Amelia, for inviting me on. I'm also really excited to be here with this panel. I'm in San Francisco, and it is chilly here, a chilly 60 degrees. And I'm a physician scientist at UCSF. I went the route of doing an MD PhD, followed by a pathology residency, dermatopathology fellowship, and then a postdoc. So I really did come full circle and do that whole translational research part. And so for me, and I'm also now a coach, I'm very passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion issues. I identify as Latina, so I bring experience very much so from, I'm embracing more and more every day my culture and kind of using that as a way to connect. Also, as a physician scientist, I feel like experience in the clinical and like what the questions are really serves me in the lab. So I feel like those connections are just so key in all parts of what I do. And as far as the coaching, I like Dr. Vasquez and many of us here actually love bringing this work to residents, medical students, and physician scientists, in particular for me, and Latina physicians.
I love that. Such a great group here tonight, and we're going big for our final round of the panel. It's going to be fantastic. I heard a couple great points in here that really resonated from Maureen's talk yesterday, and let's talk about data for a moment, and perhaps this differentiation between hard and soft data. And what we heard last night was that oftentimes we do think there has to be this set way in that expert model and using data kind of at the forefront and in an anticipatory way. In the recommendation and the encouragement that I heard was that we can still find data through experience, right? And Dr. Lang, let's come back to you and maybe look at that. And you're in that physician scientist space. And so how do you maybe marry those two or balance them? Where are those numbers, right, in those certain specifics helpful, and where is that experiential data really valuable?
Yeah, no, 100%. That is such a really, like, that's one of the things I find is it's like a sweet spot of where I'm at right now. Because I'm a practicing dermatopathologist, I know what the day-to-day kind of pain points are, what the questions are. And because my research involves improving diagnostics, I actually know what kind of tests would be used, the practical part of it. Like when I look at my colleagues and I look to see what their style is, what their practice is, I can actually use that experience as kind of a sounding board to what actually makes sense practically. Like, what are the relevant questions to ask? So I feel like that human component is so helpful when you could discover the most amazing thing, but if it doesn't make sense to the clinician to use, then you're kind of spinning in circles. So I think from like that translational practicality experience component, I think like that bridge is what, it's essentially so important.
I think so powerful for you to bring that, because we can make assumptions, right, on what the pathology land might be like, but still to know, right, the human connection always matters, always makes a difference in there. And Dr. Zhu, you brought that up, right? So the science and the art of medicine, how do you see the power in that experiential data to drive your practice?
Well, in family practice, I mean, we just kind of get, your bread and butter. But what I love about it is kind of the variety. You have no idea what comes through, the door. And so, obviously you draw on, the scientific guidelines, the standards of medicine, but it's really the one-on-one where you really kind of have to focus where the patient is at. And I find that because of the breadth and diversity of it, you really have to figure out where they are within their own healthcare and meet them where they are. So, you do your best to, use the standards, but be able to kind of, help them where they are and, just kind of take them to the next level. So, and it's fun because it's always a variety and you have no idea where it's going. So
great to be able to blend those, right? To take the data with you and to bring it into whatever is happening in that moment. Dr. Ghayal, how about for you? Do you have that experience where you really are able to gather some very meaningful information in those direct encounters, be that with your patients or with your coaching clients?
So it's very interesting because in pediatrics and in the integrative world, a lot of what we do doesn't always have all the data like laid out for everyone, and it's mostly like experiential. There is evidence in the integrative work that we do, but there's not decades of it, and so it was there, but we weren't actually documenting it. So even like when my pediatric patients come in, like the parents, most of it is like, this is the experience I have with my families and my children, and then my patients and the parents. And so they're more prone to listen when there has been experience. And so I can hand them saying, oh, fenugreek does this, if you want to do this. But the story behind it and that connection is so important. And in integrative medicine, especially because mind-body medicine, I think a lot of us, especially in the medical world, are, well, what study says that? Which article says that? And the truth is, it's been there for like 600-700 years, and we just haven't put it in a paper or an article. So that, I feel like in both of those like clinical worlds, I see that very commonly. I mean, in coaching, it's just like self-explanatory, like it's all the experience, it's all individualized. And the same thing that you say to like I work with physicians and moms, and it's like you say one thing to them, like someone else will take it completely differently, so it's that experience that you create for them.
I love that. And illustrating, right, there's all kinds of data, even if it's just not in the format that might be acceptable to us, and deciding what we're justifying and qualifying is adequate. So helpful. Dr. Vasquez, how about for you? How do you notice data collection coming up perhaps in unique ways in your practice?
Yeah, so now that I'm leading, a group of attending physicians at a hospital, what I did initially was I created a survey, or implemented it really. It's called the Maslow Burnout Inventory. And there's a lot of surveys and tools that really give us really helpful information. Like the MBI, for example, is a tool that we can use to basically measure the degree of burnout many of the physicians are experiencing. And then it also kind of breaks it down into what are the drivers of that burnout. And so is it the workload? Is it the loss of community? Is it this, lack of fairness or control over your schedule? And so there are 6 different components. And so I'm able to utilize that data to help institutions, help them really address the drivers of burnout, and hopefully also able to show that actually physician coaching is making an improvement in their overall quality of life with the pre and post survey. So it's kind of of a nice thing that we have all these tools at our fingertips where we can really help change the culture of medicine.
Absolutely. And thanks for pointing that out. I'm curious, as you engaged with them, and perhaps you haven't seen all of the data just yet, if it would match, right? So if your energetic experience of how they are seemed to match what the results were on the study. I have found with physicians I've worked with, when we take these different types of assessments, they're often surprised that their scores are much lower than they think, right? We think we're kind of doing okay because we've learned to cope. And I'm curious if you had that experience, if you had that now, or if you'll notice that. Did you get any sense of that with working with these physicians?
Yeah, the preliminary data that I have been able to review is very surprising that a lot of them are actually burnout, and there is an option where they can comment on what is actually, their personal perspective of their drivers for burnout. And it's very telling, it kind of lines up with what we're seeing in the data. And so, if you have an opportunity to utilize these tools, I think they're very helpful. They're not that expensive. And a lot of the hospitals and institutions actually want that data so they can really make meaningful changes in their organizations.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Dyne, how about for you? You alluded to this, how you're data gathering right when you walk into the space. And I love that you related it to how you deliver the outcomes or the data to the patients, right? And so how that comes through for you. How does this for you as an advantage in the ER?
Oh, just my own life experience in general is a huge advantage, because I will think of things related to just experiences that I've had in my life, be it through exercise or having been injured multiple times and gone through physical therapy, and I've learned, things from physical therapists and trainers, etc. And I'm just very observant by nature. I notice how people are sitting and how they're leaning, whatever. And I'm very frequently figuring out what's wrong with a patient when other people haven't been able to figure it out. They've had a whole big negative workup, and it's like, what handed are you, and what exactly tools are you using when you're doing your yard work or whatever? And I figure out the mechanism of injury because I have an understanding through my own experience of anatomy, but it's very functional, right? So it's very different from person to person how they actually use their body, the asymmetries that people have, the just natural tendencies they have, where they carry their stress, how they slouch, etc. So I put that all together by data gathering, with my observational skills, and asking some questions that I have learned through my experience, into being able to figure out what's going on with the patient. It's actually so much fun, and I just love being able to do that and share the experience that I've developed over my 20 plus years as a clinician, to help people figure out what's wrong with them, particularly with the musculoskeletal stuff. I don't know if that actually answers your question, but it's kind of what
No,
I
that's
wanted to
great. That's great. And it's actually a perfect segue into the next place I was going. So you're creating an excellent bridge. And I think it's so important to remember that our life experience counts, right? That comes into the space, and we can use that as a resource and as a tool. And as you were noting, a lot of the mechanical and musculoskeletal pieces, Maureen Hunter also alluded to the body scan. And so one tool that she uses for herself and with others to notice, right? When something's shifting, when the energy is doing something weird in the room, where are you noticing it? What are you noticing in your body? And how is that relating to the feeling that you're having? And for me, I'm a lifelong athlete, and I realize I spend a lot of time in kind of the superficial body, right? And actually, when you start to tune into what else the body can tell you, there's so much there. And Dr. Ghayal, let's come to you, because you mentioned mind-body medicine in your integrative space. How do you utilize that either for yourself or as a tool to engage with patients?
Once I understood and kind of was open to the whole integrative world, it was all about me. Like, I kind of was like, how can I implement this in my life? Because if I can't do that, then how am I able to help others, right? Like, how can I truly be involved? So I'm MBSR certified, and we had to go through this like 8-week training. Oh my God, to do like a 50-minute like body scan, like the first couple of times I would just fall asleep, because you're just like, you don't realize it. Like, oh, I stay quiet, I just fall asleep. But the truth is, after a little while, you recognize and notice things like how one hip is a little bit tighter than the other, or like just like your breathing. And so that was kind of like, for me, like the best segue. So meditation, but nutrition. Like, I'm already plant-based, and that was all there, but that's not enough, right? Like, how are you eating your food? Is it like typical attending style, you know, when you're rushing through, or are you sitting and are you enjoying your meal? Because we take in food through all our senses, right? And that is so important to remember and recognize. And so the mind also, you know, comes into play when we do, like, I do the coaching with my clients, because what are you feeding yourself through the thoughts that you're having, right? Like, it's so important to think about it in that way. And I think most of us are trained to just be in survival mode, especially like medical school, residency, like attending, like you're just like done, done, done. And so when we stop and pause and actually like experience, and like you said, like kind of in tune with the inner self, it just like opens up these doors that you never knew even existed before.
Yes, I love it. 15-minute body scan. All right. We were going for like 15 seconds would be an adventure. We have something we can aspire to here. Dr. Lang, how about for you? How do you notice that body check-in as an opportunity in perhaps a stressful situation, or where you are sensing something that might be a little bit off happening?
So I don't, in my medical world, I mostly do interact with people when I'm teaching. So when I'm teaching residents, I try my best to connect with them and see where they're really at, and kind of, I actually like check in with myself to make sure that I am kind of presenting myself in a relaxed way, so that that can kind of be conveyed physically, kind of that those physical cues that this is a safe space for them to ask questions. And I work with some of the some world famous dermatopathologists who, and I'm very, very, very junior. So I always kind of try that, kind of checking in with just making sure that I'm relaxed and I'm kind of portraying that ease physically, as well as just in the ways I talk, and trying to make a space where they can also open up and know that it's safe to ask any stupid question or whatever they might think. And so I think that's, for the most part, my interaction with people is mostly through teaching at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so helpful to remember, right? That check-in and how you want to present yourself, doing that body scan and noticing that can help you in that way. You know, am I creating this energetic exchange that's inviting for someone? That's super helpful. Dr. Zhu, how about for you? How do you use that body scan for yourself personally or professionally?
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't know if there's other osteopaths on this panel, but I recall to my training and schooling back in the day, body scans were our bread and butter for osteopathic manipulative treatments. And so I just remember being in the osteopathic labs and just, body scanning from top to bottom, how they, stand, their postures, just like the frontal, the coronal, and the side, views, and then just watching people walk over time. And I don't know, this might be a weird thing, but before COVID, one of my best things to do, my favorite things to do, was just having coffee and just watching people, walk by, the coffee house. And, you can just learn a lot about, what they are preoccupied with, how they're holding their body, whether they're in their thoughts or, actually focused on the present moment. Another segue would be, my niche is culinary medicine. So I do a lot of cooking, Payal, you were talking a lot about that. And, I do a lot of traveling, and these types of experiences help me to use all 5 of my senses. And I feel like we're in a very visual world and environment, so we can just rely on that a lot. You know what I'm saying? Just by looking at your phone, an iPhone will tell you how much screen time you have. So it's like, how we have to be able to exercise our other 5 senses, and that's also that I try to impart to my patients as well. So it helps me be a better physician, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that in, fellow DO here, myself. And when I speak with students about this too, I like to remind them that training in palpating the body and observing the body also can make us better listeners in general. So just taking that skill forward, especially in this time, right? So for me, my clinic was closed, and so I had to switch to virtual engagements and finding ways that those skills in listening and observing, like Dr. Dyne alluded to as well, can translate and carrying those forward. That's so great. Dr. Vasquez, how does the body scan come up for you? Do you use that yourself? Do you utilize that as a tool with patients or clients?
Yeah, I think it's really key. I mean, as busy physicians, we're always on the hamster wheel. We're going, 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 going. And it's really, I think, hard for us to just stop and just create awareness of like, what is our own pulse like right now? Like, how do I feel, in that kind of spectrum of wellness to illness? Like, where am I on that spectrum? And so, I've used it myself, and then like to implement it too with some of my clients is that breath work, box breathing, and just really like it really, decreases your own pulse and kind of gets you into that present moment. So that way you can kind of focus on the moment at hand, and kind of get out of our head, but really kind of ground ourselves. And then also, a lot of this work is very emotional. It's very personal. Especially, as medical students, we're never taught to like process our training, process the trauma that we've gone through. And we've carried it all this way, through residency. And then we get to be an attending and we're supposed to have all the answers. And especially now in a pandemic when we don't all have all the answers, we're kind of trying to figure it out. There's a lot of pent up emotion. And so, providing that space, holding that space so they can process that emotion, I think is super important. And then, drawing attention to the breath work too.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think the breath, right, holds so much power and is so simple. So a tool we can use and teach on a regular basis. And what a gift we have as physicians, right, to be in teacher roles almost automatically, and some of us more formally than others. Dr. Dyne, I know you're in that space as a DIO, so having a very significant overarching teaching role. And one of the concepts that was so fascinating to me yesterday was the job that Maureen brings when she's like psychologist, organizational psychologist, and makes sure when she comes into an organization, she wants to find out how everyone feels they're being a part and how they're being their best and being effective. And I'm curious what you have found to be successful in that, because I imagine, right, you're managing the faculty and the residents and the incoming residents and navigating that team. What have been some key ways you found success in that space?
Yeah, my favorite thing about my role as a designated institutional official, which is so I'm the key point person for my hospital between the ACGME and the AAMC and the training programs. So my favorite thing about that is it's actually middle management. So I'm the go-between between the program directors and the C-suite. And it's very creative because the C-suite people, the chief medical officer, CEO, and the CEO, CNO, all the C people, they have their agenda, right? And they have their perception of what the residents and what the faculty are supposed to be doing, but I focus really on the residents. And then the residents and the program directors have their issues. And so my job is to sort of like bring them together and keep them on the same page. And it's really fun because they are so disparate. They're just up in different orbits. And so I get to really try and represent what I know about what the C-suite people value and what the program director people value, and show them where they have common ground. And that is very dynamic and constantly changing. It's really fun though, and I get to use my observational skills and communication skills and sort of knowledge of what each one values all the time.
Yes, and I think so many times I found that to be the role, right, of a physician, is to be that translator and an advocate and a representative, and that kind of that go-between. And that can actually be a great space. And like you said, ultimately, you don't have to make the final decision either. So you can offer a lot of information and leave it with them. That's so helpful. Dr. Lang, you mentioned as well being in a little bit of that between space, right? Being more of a junior faculty, but also a teacher to the residents and perhaps the students. How do you find an effective way to ensure that people are in their best role, right? In their zone of genius, perhaps within the organization in that learning space?
Yeah, no, I think it's really from my own personal experience of transitioning from being a resident to junior faculty and also being in the lab and kind of having the power dynamics there are really interesting. So I sort of have to put on a cap of I'm an attending, and then at the same time I step away and I have like a postdoc total trainee role. So I think in all of that is just a lot of humility of just like saying it as it is. It's being vulnerable and that I don't know all the answers. I'm just starting out, and let me ask the questions and let me show the residents that it's okay to ask questions as a junior attending. And I think a lot of the coaching work has allowed me to kind of open up and not have that imposter syndrome so much that I think is very, very common and prevalent, and especially when you're surrounded by, kind of these high achievers that have been at it for way longer. So some of the things I try to do is just be an example of being vulnerable, asking questions, that we don't know everything. And as a researcher, I 100% can back that we don't know everything, because I've done the literature search and I know where the holes are. So those are some of the things I try to bring some of my research cap of, like, just we don't know the answers, and then at the same time that attending, like, trying to do your best and come up with the most accurate diagnosis, not always the right one, unfortunately.
I love that. And I often find that so encouraging. So we don't know, especially for research, right? Job security there. That means we get to keep asking and finding out. And so that's good news to not always have the answers. That's so helpful. Dr. Vasquez, as you're leading this group in the hospital, how will you, or how have you found it effective to find out if people feel valued, feel seen, feel they're in, the best space for their gifts and talents?
Yeah, well, part of that survey actually looks into that and looks at, like, those 6 drivers of burnout. And so, like, do they feel like there is reward, like they're being recognized for their contributions, whether in the clinic or, whatever their role is. And so, and then in that survey, there's a comment where people have been able to comment. And so it's just, I think for a lot of physicians in big organizations, it's really hard to feel like, you're being recognized, for all that you're able to contribute. And so it's really good. It gives me good information to really kind of hone in on those concerns and on those thoughts, so I can really coach on those issues where we learn how to, like, really appreciate our own contributions. And so that internal validation instead of seeking external validation, which is often nice, everybody wants an award and to be recognized, but really appreciating that, I feel good because I know I'm showing up in the world and I'm making a difference, and I have that internal validation. I think that's a lot of doctors need to hear that and learn that.
Absolutely. And untrain ourselves into it, right? Because we have been taught that a lot of these external test scores and certifications are, key and valuable. And so to find the internal way is so important. Dr. Zhu, how does this come up for you, for yourself, for your patients, or in other walks of life, how you find if you or others are in their best zone in feeling valued?
Feeling valued. I think, like everyone is kind of talking about, is really when you're in your head, you can't really receive anything, right? A lot of times when we're at high performing, professions and, just doing the jobs that we do have to utilize, our heads a lot. And I think a long way we can do is finding that time for self-care and giving time to process, and Dr. Lang was, talking about that. A lot of it, I feel like the dots are connecting, is where if we had chose traditionally to go through college and medical school and then residency into our profession, there's very, very little room to actually experience life on the outside, right? We just spent so many years, time, money, resources, blood, sweat, and tears. I know for me, and you don't really get a chance to kind of develop generally as a person. Pretty much your 20s are like wiped away, right? So a lot of it is really having that balance. We talk a lot about work-life balance, more so with the pandemic, about family relationships and more, self-care, because, a lot of people are living on their own. They're just, isolated on their own. So it's really about developing and honing who you are as a person, processing your everyday, day to day, and just focusing on one day at a time. So, like everyone here, it's like we don't know the answers, and, we don't have to hold ourselves that high and just say like, hey, I'm, a human being at the end of the day, like my titles are just outward expressions of myself, and just give yourself a little bit of slack. And I think that goes a long way.
So helpful, right? The titles are just part of it. And that was actually one of our panels before. And what do we make titles and identities mean? And I love that encouragement too, to not be in our heads so that we can receive and notice like how we are valued and valuable. That's so great. Dr. Ghayal, welcome back. I'm glad you made it back in. We're looking at how we can ensure, or maybe even just check in with others and how they are feeling, seen, heard, valued, in their zone of genius within an organization or even within their lives.
So I apologize about that. I did get a new little device to get closer to my office, so it arrived today. I think authenticity comes up for me when you say that. In an institution, at work, are you really being who you are, or are you trying to just be a fly on the wall, not be noticed? Because when you do get noticed, people, they have an opinion, right? And we're thinking that opinion is not always going to be accepted because that's the culture of medicine. And it's been like this for a very long time. And so to even be open and willing to accept that there's possibilities outside of what's been there in the past, I think that is where I'm like, we have to kind of look within and say, is that where I want to be? And that's also true in your personal life, truly, because I started doing this integrative work like just recently, but it's in my heart for so long. And why? Why did I wait so long? And that's something I had to really think and say, well, what was it about like my mindset that wasn't allowing me to do something that's outside the norm? And so that came in, and then the coaching has been the most transformative for me, hands down, because I kind of like realized that in my entire career and even in my personal life, I've constantly tried to please other people. And so that's just what's taught, like you're supposed to, your chiefs, your senior residents, everyone, you just have to like make everyone happy. And then our personal life, it's like parents, our spouses, our kids. So like, truly, I'm like, why do I want to do this? I ask myself before I want to do something, like, why am I on this talk today? Because I wanted to do it. I didn't have to do it. I wasn't trying to sell anything or do anything. It's just being who I am. And so if we can ask ourselves, is this what I want to do authentically? I know you're very good about like taking care of yourself as far as like exercising. And I love seeing all that you do. And I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And, I'm like, improve my health, and so that's what I've been kind of adding on. And my biggest part of my health that I'm improving is my mental health, especially in the pandemic.
Yes, thank you for that observation. And I was listening today to Brene Brown's most recent Unlocking Us, which moved to Spotify. So if you've been following it and you're not getting the updates, it's because it's on a new platform. So make sure you follow it there. And it was Emmanuel Acho, who is the author and also the host of Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. And he made the point, right? And she's asking about criticism. And he just point blank says, well, the only way to not have criticism is to never say or do anything, right? And so just being willing to put yourself out there and to expect it, right? To not be surprised by it, but to, like you said, like your reason, right? And be doing it for your reasons. And that can make it much easier to bear when we do get the questioning or the criticism back. So powerful. One more point I want to bring through, and then I want to make space for each of you to share what it is you are doing right now and what projects are coming up for you. But a point also that came through this was identifying when we are stuck or when others are stuck and how to get them unstuck. And we've heard coaching as a method, and I'm curious what maybe an example was for you personally or for someone you've worked with, and what's been a successful tool, maybe a specific example that's been helpful. Dr. Vasquez, how about for you? How have you dealt with stuck and unstuck for yourself or for others?
Gosh, I mean, it just brings me back to like my own burnout. I didn't even know that's what it was. I just knew that, I'm a very happy person and very optimistic. And, at different points in my career, I felt emotionally exhausted. I just felt disconnected, kind of underappreciated my own efforts, of what I was able to do and my impact. And so that negativity, just really stopped me in my tracks. I was like, something has to change and I don't know what it is. And that's when I found coaching. And so I really feel like coaching was the answer to help me create that awareness of like, I have choice. I have choice in my life. And if I want something to change, I have all the power and the agency to do that. And so I just love, all the tools and skills that I'm able to utilize in my own life, and then now teach that to medical students, residents, attendings. I mean, everybody can so much benefit from creating that awareness, that peace, and really that blueprint to thrive, in their own personal and professional lives. So that's what I've been able to utilize in my life.
Yeah, choice sounds like a great leveraging device, right, to get unstuck. Thank you. Dr. Lang, how about for you? How has stuck come up for you or for those you're working with, and what's been a good antidote?
Well, I think the pandemic really turned the world upside down for me in the sense that labs were at a premium. You had to sign up on a sign-up sheet to get lab time at the bench. And in the position, as you now know, I'm an attending. I have like an attending salary, and here I am competing with bench space with a graduate student and a traditional postdoc. I mean, this was this whole idea of like, why am I doing science? And like, how is it gonna show up in my life? What do I want to get out of it? What does it all mean to me? And so I really had to reevaluate everything. And kind of, this is where my coaching kind of niche is right now, is coaching physician scientists and empowering them to realize, you've gone through this whole training, and in a lot of ways it puts you in a box. I mean, imagine they're just handing you your tuition for medical school and graduate school and telling you you're part of a program that is funded through a grant because we want physician scientists to do X, Y, Z. So they're giving me the roadmap and my life on the platter. This is of course my story I told myself for a long time. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but I think, just questioning everything, and now I'm exploring industry. I'm exploring other forms of, contributing to science, and just the allowing for, questioning everything all over again. I think that's really been the most helpful to me.
Absolutely. So we're building on that. So choice can get us unstuck, and that questioning. And we can think to it. And I love curiosity as the option as well. And so just thinking, why am I doing this? And do I want to keep doing this? And sometimes saying no is really hard, right? In medicine, especially like you listed, that was a lot of years and a lot of expectations, but still to be willing to ask that question. So powerful. Dr. Dyne, how about for you? What's come up as far as stuck and getting unstuck?
So about 10 years ago, well, I was feeling very sort of stuck and trapped in my career as an emergency physician because I have a kind of a chronic disability. I have a ankle. It's a congenital deformity that's resulted in really bad arthritis. And the pain was really bad, and about 10 years ago. And I was like, how am I going to keep walking around this big ER, and doing the thing that I love when it hurts a lot to walk? And so the thing that got me, so I was faced with like, am I not ready to retire? Like, am I 45? Like, I'm totally not ready to retire, but and I don't want to take disability, and I don't want to change what I do. And so I just started questioning myself, like, how can I be more creative about problem solving this pain? And so that's when I actually availed myself to some integrative medicine techniques and went to acupuncture and tried a bunch of different tried that a lot, and it actually completely changed my whole life. And I'm allopathic physician. I'm evidence-based, that kind of stuff. I'm in academics at UCLA, geez. It took me really pushing myself out of the box for my own self-preservation to try something. And I forged this amazing relationship with a local acupuncturist in near where I live, who is this brilliant guy. And he just really turned me on to the whole world of integrative medicine, which I had just not previously been familiar with. And it was really revolutionary. So then I started getting way out of my head and into all these other things, and have learned and made pain management in emergency department an area of focus and expertise, and that's added so much joy to the rest of my career as well. And that's when I really started learning all these physical medicine, diagnostic skills, and therapeutic skills too, which are not part of my usual training. So that's how I got myself unstuck, was by opening my brain to what else is possible.
That broadened perspective, so powerful, and it doesn't have to discredit your experience, right? So it doesn't mean that allopathic medicine no longer has a place. It's really this layering and integration of them, right? That's the concept within the name, and how they can actually be so complementary. How amazing. And then you get to bring that to your patients, right? And 10 years later, you're still walking the floors, it sounds like, of the ER pretty successfully.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And teaching residents all these new techniques, nobody else really knew them. Nobody else, knows these things around. So it's cool.
So great. Dr. Zhu, how about for you? How has stuck come up, and what has helped you move through that?
Oh, I've way more instances that I care to, admit. But I'm definitely going to be echoing my fellow colleagues here. Definitely, my course through residency was very, in my opinion, very tumultuous. I'm sure everyone has, some relation, to that, and and personally as well. You kind of have to navigate and balance, family and friends and relationships, and I'm sure a lot of people have hobbies and passions and things. And so the point of stuck is really kind of asking yourself, is what I want, what I thought I want, what I want right now? And so, the word that comes to mind is prioritization. And so, all the different goals and achievements, we're all high performing individuals here. Those are all well and great, but sometimes when we're not focused on the present moment, and you're stuck, there's a disconnect, right? So I think just taking a step back, I'm a very, big picture, bird's eye view type of person. And so, just asking yourself, what do I, need at this moment, right? That doesn't mean that you can't accomplish all the different things in the future, but, what is my mind, body, and everything, togetherness, what do we need right now, right? And then just giving yourself some slack, like I said before, and exercising patience. I think that we're too much in a rush, to just do things, accomplish things, and things like that. And it's kind of like, hey, let's just slow down a bit and just, be patient with ourselves, so.
That's so great. Yes. And we're building on these. So we go from choice to questioning to broaden perspective and prioritization, and so many great ways to get unstuck and to normalize it, right? Being stuck isn't unusual and isn't even necessarily a problem, right? Sometimes it is that pause, like you're saying, Dr. Zhu, to slow down, right? And to give ourselves a little space to make meaningful decisions. All right, Dr. Ghayal, how about for you? Stuck and unstuck.
So I'm the queen of stuck. Well, I used to be the queen of stuck. And I think all of it was like all this pressure I put on myself that, like the work-life balance, which really does not exist. You can do all of it, but just not at the same time. And that was kind of a hard pill for me to swallow, because I went from working 60 hours a week, and then I had kids, and like that had to be perfect, and this had to be perfect. And I put so much pressure on myself that at the end of the day, when I was like taking care of everyone else, like there was nothing, no space, no energy left for me, and when that happened, like I felt like, where do I go? Like, I don't understand, because technically on paper, it looks perfect, like 2-physician household, like this, that, whatever, healthy, not an issue. And so I found myself kind of like, and this is how I imagine it in my head. It's like I'm underwater, I'm drowning, and I'm reaching out for help. And I'm reaching, and I'm like, somebody grab me, someone get me. But I didn't realize that the only person who could get me was me. It is so important to like know that. And I think that like, that's actually like the first time I got coached, like I didn't understand that. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you have to have your own back, And so to be honest, like that was my going from like stuck to like possibilities. And now it's like, anything is possible. And I don't feel that. I feel like I'm writing my own story every single day. I'm making my own choices. And one day I choose to, go to clinic and do whatever I'm going to do. And I don't care what's happening at home. They're going to be okay. And then some days I'm like, I guess, I do have to micromanage kindergarten and second grade, and it's my day off. And that's okay. You know, it's not, I'm not a good doctor for doing that, and I'm not a good mother for going to work. Just that work-life balance threw me into the stuckness, but the reality that it doesn't exist and it's all about choosing every day what you want is really like what pulled me out of it.
I love that. And I'm going to build on just the alliteration-ness. 2 C's and 3 P's here. So remember, for unstuck, we have choice, we have curiosity, we have perspective, prioritization, and possibilities. So many great lessons to be had here. All right, as we come to our wrap up, I want to give each of you a moment to tell everyone where they can find you. So which social media channel, or all of them, or your website, what programs are coming up for you, and then any closing remarks you have on this idea of kind of, let's say, ditching the expert model and stepping into experience as a means of connection. Dr. Dyne, what's your closing statement and where we can find you?
Well, you can find me slaving away at, not really slaving, it's totally of choice, at UCLA and all of the UCLA Medical Center. That's the hospital where I am the DIO. I'm not really that big on social media. You find me on Facebook, Pamela Lawson Dyne, or on the Peloton at Sing ER Pam. That's the Peloton handle. That's probably my most common thing that I get. Actually, that honestly, in the pandemic, the connection that I have forged with, you know, thousands of mostly women, but not entirely, all around the world through the Peloton is amazing. I never would have thought that would become something so meaningful as just having each other's backs and encouragement. So, yeah. Professionally, what's coming up for me is I'm actually transitioning into and creating a brand new faculty development role for my department, which I'm super excited about, and in which I will definitely be using coaching.
Excellent. And all of these that we've talked about tonight will certainly come into play there, right? How you tune into energy and others. And yeah, don't underestimate Peloton as a social media engagement, right? That's a huge platform that's being utilized. Dr. Lang, where can people find you? What's coming up for you? And any closing remarks on experience?
So you can find me at Dr. Lang and Twitter. I managed to try to streamline across the platform. So on Twitter, Instagram, and then drurslang@gmail.com. And because I like to do multiple things, for better or for worse, all at the same time, I'm involved in Latina Docs Facebook group. So if you identify as a Latina and a physician, like Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Dyne here actually are part of our group, you can join us there. We're going to launch a program, our beta program in March, so that'll be exciting. And then otherwise, my own solo thing is it's called MudFud Mind Project, because I really do think as MudFuds or physician scientists, MD PhDs, we have a lot of mind stuff we can investigate. And so investigating your mind is my little tagline for that. And otherwise, my closing remarks would be just, break outside of the box and let's use that creativity for ourselves and not just for science, not just for other people, but we count too. We're arguably the most important component of the puzzle of our lives. So.
Excellent. And I fully support doing all the things, so that's great. I'm on board with that project management. Dr. Vasquez, where can everyone find you? What's coming up for you and your last thoughts around experience?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's www.renewyourmindmd.com. And I'm also on Facebook as well, renewyourmindmd.com on Facebook. It's my business page. And I'm going to be launching probably some group programs in the spring. Currently, I'm doing one now, and I'm also working one-on-one with clients all the time. So you can find me there. And I guess my parting words are just, you matter. What is in your heart and your mind? If you need to take time to invest in yourself, it's the most wonderful thing to do, because you're phenomenal human beings and you have purpose. And sometimes when we're overwhelmed with all the burnout and all the daily struggles, it can feel overwhelming. But I want you to know that there's hope, and it's possible to get on the other side of burnout. So keep hope alive.
Thank you. And Dr. Ghayal, for you, let us know where you are, what is coming up for you, and your closing remarks on using experience for connection.
Sure. So my website is mdthemindfuldoctor.com. And on social media, I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. My business page is MD The Mindful Doctor, and Instagram, you can find me there. I also have a private Facebook group for women physicians looking for life and parent coaching. And so you, under the same name, I just keep it all the same. So if you're interested and need some help and support and guidance and be part of a community, I do have that there. And then currently I am doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. In the spring, I may lean more towards group, but right now I really just want to focus on one-on-one clients. And the thought that really helped me get unstuck initially was, why not me? And I want to offer that to everyone else. Like, why not you? You know, like, why not you? Why don't you need to feel healthy and happy and joyful? And so now what's really like brought me to where I am is like, I'm more than enough. And I just want to say, so are you. You're more than enough. And it's time for that transformation. Because whenever people ask me, when is the best time to start? I say yesterday.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so great to share the wisdom that supported you. All right, Dr. Zhu, tell us where you are, where you can be found, what projects are coming up, and your closing remarks.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Amelia, thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate it. And it's a great pleasure to be with you, for everyone here. So great to chat with everyone. You can find me on my website, chefdoczu.com. My last name's ZHU. And we are in the process of, I'm working on launching a virtual summit in May called the Thrive Formula. And it's based off of, 5 pillars. My goal with this is to, inspire, educate, and help others to thrive, and impact others, many as possible. And so we're gathering upwards to like 40 speakers. I have 5 keynotes of a mixture of doctors and experts, and we're focusing on food as medicine, using whole foods, plant-based as an approach, functional medicine, relationships with ourselves, with others, the power of community, service and leadership, and how our, how we environmentally impact, the planet as well. And then resilience. We talk a lot about emotional and mental fortitude. And so, that's coming up in May. So you can find that on my website. There's an email sign-up list, and pretty excited about it.
That sounds fantastic. So we'll definitely stay tuned to look when that launches. And for me, you can find me on my own Facebook page, Amelia L. Beakey, or at This Osteopathic Life, and with coaching for institutions as well. I run individual and group programs to bring health to medicine at all levels of education, training, and practice. And for me, with experience, it really is all there is, right? So we have all the data we can gather from before, we can project into the future, but we're always in the now. So I encourage all of us to let experience lead the way. Thank you all for your time, for your expertise, which does matter, right? We're not leaving it behind, but we're marrying it with our experience and how that can be so powerful in the moment. If you're watching this on playback, you can check out all the bios of our panelists on the SoMeDocs website. And thank you for tuning in these past 4 months. It's been an amazing adventure looking at all these topics and sharing discussion with many brilliant physician panelists. Thank you all.